blowfish. They're blowfish. Pufferfishes.
That's what seen better days. Okay, Mother. We're going to try to go through these adult years real fast. And I didn't want to wear those.
I didn't talk about my motorcycle.
That was teenage years?
Yes.
Tell me about your teenage year of motorcycle group.
All right. My brother joined the Harley gang. And so I did too, since I was a tomboy. That's when I was 15, so he was 16. And so we got... Actually, there was no drugs back in that day. So they were safe, I would say, and being in a motorcycle gang. But we would go to the neighboring cities to fight the other gangs in the other cities. And since I was so little, they wouldn't let me fight. But I had to be the lookout for the cops. So when I saw the cops, I could warn them and then we'd leave. So we never got caught. But back then, the girls in the gang would tape double-edged razor blades to their wrist. And they would also, our jackets had the chains on the jackets that you could just rip out and hit somebody with. So.
Sounds lovely.
We were lovely.
Sounds like some lovely children.
And then, of course, the leader of the gang, he became my boyfriend. And it was static electricity between us. You couldn't get near each other when you could feel the electricity going. But he was a Catholic and I was a Lutheran, so I never got to stay with him anyway. And he finally went in the Navy, and then when I was still in high school. And so then I met Dad.
Whoa. What a segue. What was the name of your motorcycle gang?
Did we have a name for it? I don't know if they even had a name for it.
Okay, so it wasn't Hell's Angels.
But everybody was over 21 except my brother and me. And our other neighbor friend, Bill.
Okay, so tell me about when you met Dad.
All right. I was in my senior year of high school, and I had an aunt that was going to pay my way through college, so I could probably become a teacher. And I said, well, walking down the street, I said, Lord, I'll just leave it up to you. My aunt's going to pay my way through college. And I said, if you got other plans for me, let me know. So about a week or two later, I was walking down the street going to the skating rink with my girlfriend Judy. And I looked up and saw William in the window, and he was standing there with his friend. And we heard bells, saw stars, and it was just like, wow. Love at first sight. And I asked my girlfriend, do you know that guy in the window up there? And he was asking his friend, hey, do you know that girl down there? And so, of course, when we got into the skating rink, we did meet each other. And eventually, William and I got married, and Judy and Dennis got married too later. So that was a double whammy.
Wow.
So I never got to college.
Did those two know each other before that?
I don't think so.
So you met at a skating rink. Okay. Interesting. Exactly what day were y'all married?
October 21st, 1961.
Okay. What is Tommy's birth date?
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
March 24th, 1962.
October, December.
Well, there's a story behind that.
Hold on. I said December. So there's October, and then there's November, December, January, February, March. Not judging. Okay. We got that clear, though. All right.
You want to know I did not lose my virginity till after I graduated high school?
That's nice to know. So what were the early days like with Dad?
I would go out to the movies, or we had outdoor theaters back then and indoor theaters, and go to the parks. Since he was older than I was and I wasn't drinking age, we never went out drinking until I was 18, I think. And we went to the 18-year-old bar. They had 18-year-old bars up in Wisconsin. And, teenage years. Yes.
A little flashback coming?
Well, yeah, a couple of them. One of my boyfriends, Bernie, had a motorcycle. And so we used to go riding in the country all the time on his motorcycle. And one of my best friends was a beautiful Indian girl. And she went steady with this fat boy just because he had a motorcycle. And then she burnt her leg on a muffler and burnt it almost from the knee down to the ankle. I don't know how she did it that far, but she did. She's in pain for a long time. And my other boyfriend, Bernie, we had fun together. And then I was going out with this Tom. And he had a band. And since I was a good dancer, I got to dance up on the stage when they were playing in different clubs. And him and I were the only ones under 18. His brother was in the band too, but all them other members of the band are over 21. So we played at several places with bars, but they always let Tommy and I sit up there in the bars and have beers with the other band members. And I got to dance on the stage there. And one day we had this boy from Milwaukee, Danny King, play, and he sings and looks just like Elvis. And the waitresses and people in the audience would scream and holler and faint and everything. It was really cool. Well, this Danny wrote a song for me. Since my name is Sandy. He named it Sandy and wrote it and had it recorded on a record, a little 45 record. And I had that record for years until my neighbor's mother stole it from me. She stole all my records. But, yeah, he wrote that song. He was in love with me.
What was the name of the song?
Sandy.
And what was the artist?
Danny King.
Okay. You mentioned your friend was an Indian.
Yeah.
Is that with the dot or the
No,
feather?
No, the feather.
Okay. Just got to get that clear nowadays. Okay. Here is an off-the-wall question that came in from one of our viewers. At what age did you receive your first cell phone?
They didn't exist. Oh, wait, how about TVs?
Well, let's focus on the question. At what age did you get your first cell phone?
I'll be 65.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Because some of your 6-year-old great grandchildren have cell phones.
We didn't have colored television until we moved to Nashville. That was our first color television. I thought it was all black and white.
So that was early
Seven.
70s.
Later 70s, I think. Because we only stayed in Nashville 3 months.
Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're saying Nashville, not Pegram.
Yeah.
Right?
Pegram, we lived 8 years.
Okay. All right. So that actually gets me into my next question is where are the different places that you've lived and which one was your favorite and which one was your least favorite?
My favorite one was the haunted house, which they tore down now because they couldn't get nobody to live in it anymore. But that was in Wisconsin. So we lived, of course, in several places. Mostly in the country because we had so many children. And we loved the country. And we would have been farmers, more than likely, except that expense was too high to buy the farming equipment. And so we had to cancel that. And we moved down south because one winter we were driving down the highway and it was a snowstorm. Nobody on the highway. And the car stopped in the middle of the road. And he took a wrench and was adjusting the carburetor on the car. And the wrench froze to his hand. And he said, "That's it. You find us a place down south." And so I went to several maps and finally I wanted to come to Greene, Tennessee. And that's where we went. On January 1st, 1972. And I was 7 months pregnant with Jesse.
Yes, he was born May 10th of that year.
Oh.
So you moved to Nashville.
No, well, that's when we moved to Pegram.
Oh, okay.
Outskirts of Pegram at first.
I see. And then after that?
After we lived in that that trailer park, when we first came to Tennessee, then we moved to Pegram. I got the house there and stayed there for 8 years until our old landlords were going to sell it. And they offered the house to us and all their property there for $10,000, which is unreal today. And we didn't know anybody. He always just went to work and came home. So we never knew anybody with money. And we didn't have any with all the children. So we had to pass it up, and the banker bought it, and then we had to move. We'd be rich nowadays. They had a lawyer's office, a gas station, a post office, and another rental building in a little strip mall. And then they had a old 200-year-old house on a lot across the street. And then it had a big field that we used to play football in all the time. And they built apartments on that.
Where did you move to from there?
Then we moved to Nashville.
And you loved Nashville?
Oh, this is a black and white neighborhood. Our welcome to the neighborhood was a gunfight in the middle of the street in front of the house with the black and whites. And we had a black neighbor on one side of us and a white neighbor on the other side.
Did that make that the least favorite place that you ever lived?
Yeah. Yes. Because this black man was in love with me. One of my neighbor's brothers was in love with me. And I was afraid he'd kill Dad because they used to brag about taking women and hurting them, gang raping them, and cutting up their breasts and stuff. And it was true because this woman that lived with us in Pegram, that happened to her, and I got to see her breast where all the cut marks were on her breast. So I knew that was a true story, so I knew that guy was dangerous. And I said, we got to get out of here. And our children was going to school down near Savannah here at an academy. And so we moved down here to Savannah.
Harbert Hills. Right.
Yeah.
So you moved to Olive Hill.
Yeah.
We stayed there several years.
Yeah, we loved Olive Hill.
And then what? Where to then?
That old Churchill's farmhouse.
We were there several years.
Yeah. And then he died. Oh, we moved to Maryville, didn't we? And the boys stayed at the house.
Olivet? No, not Olivet. Old Town Road?
Yeah, we lived out there at Wallace's.
Yep.
I think that was when we came back from Maryville.
Mm.
Remember you and lived in Maryville, and then we came up there. Jesse came up there. And then I got a job at the Hilton Hotel by the airport in Alcoa. And I would have been the floor supervisor, and when everybody decided to move back to Savannah.
What was that your first job ever?
No, my first job was right out of high school. I worked for an electronics company. I love working with electronics. Oscilloscopes and stuff.
What was your other jobs between the Hilton and electronics?
Well, I think that was the Hilton. I still got my receipts from there. That was the only other one. And then I went and became a nurse's aide. Yeah, that was before I worked at Savannah Lodge. So I worked as a nurse's aide at the Park Rest. Tri-County, the Tri-County Nursing Home in Adamsville. I worked there for a couple years. And then we moved to Alabama, and I worked at a nursing home in Alabama. And we come back from there. And then I worked at Savannah Lodge for a couple years. And then I retired. I think that was the last job I had was Savannah Lodge.
Okay. You moved to Alabama. And then when you moved back from Alabama, was it here?
I think so.
I remember
I think he was married to James back
There's
then.
a couple of places, like there's that block house in Olivet. There was Jerry Myrick.
Burnt Church.
Yeah,
too.
Old Burnt Church.
Yeah, and we lived at that little house by Jerry Myrick's too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, at one time you lived in Arizona?
Yes. When we lived in Wisconsin, Kenny was 6 months old and Billy was 3. They both had asthma up in Wisconsin. And so the doctor there said the best thing you can do is probably take them to Arizona by the dry climate. And so we took a vacation with our kids and our German Shepherd dogs. And he found a job down there. And so we came home and packed up and moved to Arizona. And then it did cure their asthma. But then Tommy, the oldest child, became allergic to orange blossom pollen, and we was running him to the hospital all the time, having breathing problems. So we moved back to Wisconsin. But I loved Arizona. I used to play on the desert with the children almost every day. We'd walk across the desert to the zoo and get in the zoo all the time. And we even got to help feed the animals. We were there so many times there. And if you took a car to the zoo, it'd be like 5 miles, but walking across the desert is only about 2. And fortunately, we never ran into any rattlesnakes. And we used to play with the kids out in the desert all the time. Played cowboys and Indians since there was horse ranches around the area. And you could see horse riders in the distance by the mountains and stuff. And we'd always pretend that there's the Indians coming to get us. We were the cowboys. Had campfires out there, and we had a lot of fun.
Was Arizona your favorite place to live?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about California real quick.
Oh, kill you. We lived out in California 3 months. I couldn't stand it no more. But Bill had to be in his niece's wedding, give her away for her wedding. So we went out to California so he could be in the wedding. And we had to live with his nephew and his wife until we found a place to rent. And then Tommy was just a baby, about 10 months old, I guess. And so he was still drinking milk and stuff. Anyway, both of my husband's niece and nephew's wife both had cars. They lived a house apart from each other in a new subdivision of La Puente. And we finally found a house. It's just like their house. Because the subdivision only had a few styles of house, but there's blocks and blocks of houses. And the streets were not even paved yet. That was such a new subdivision. The desert was in the background of the houses because that still was not populated. And so these big, huge tarantula spiders would come down out of the field. They're field tarantulas, but they were almost a foot wide. And they were so big they'd cover your whole face. And we called them jumping spiders because they would jump at you. But kids would play with them, making them jump at them.
Yeah.
But being in that atmosphere, Dad was married once before, and somehow or another, those two women liked my husband's first wife. And so they just took an instant dislike to me, and I'm a very likable person. And so we'd go up the hill to one of the houses the guys always met at night. They all worked in the same place 50 miles away, so they carpooled to go to work. And so at night to relax, they would go play pool. And the women would all sit around talking. Well, I'm sitting there trying to get in their conversations, and it just did not work. They would just completely ignore me. So I finally got sick of that, and I told my husband, I said, will you please just sneak up back in the house and watch them and see what they do. So sure enough, I knew he was going to be coming up there, and I saw him come up there, and I was trying very hard to get in their conversations where they would just completely ignore me, like I wasn't even sitting there. And he saw that, and he said, you know, he always yelled when he got mad, and he goes, Sandra, come on, we're going home. And then of course they were shocked. Bill, their favorite uncle, talking. And so we went home, and I never went back up on the hill again. And his niece, Snooky, she come down to our house one time, and that was just to see how I had the furniture arranged, since all these houses were alike. And then went home, and she goes, oh, I didn't know you could put the couch there. They had an inside wall heater, and I put my couch next to it because it never got hot there. She went home and told Judy about it, and Bill went up there that night, and he said both them women had their houses rearranged like I had mine. That's California for you. If one had to get a refrigerator, the other one had to go down and get a new refrigerator.
So when you lived in California, how many times did you go to the beach?
Never even saw the ocean. Never. And it was, what, about a mile away from the interstate? The main highways that were going through there?
What do you think was the reason for that?
That's all they ever do is converse in their houses. Maybe the guys were too tired, but the women never took me anywhere. I would have to walk to the grocery store to get him milk. And these are new subdivisions, so there was no stores there. You had to walk a mile to find a grocery store. And they would not even take me in their cars. And I was pregnant with Tammy at the time, too. And so I had to push him on the stroller on this rocky road because no pavement, no sidewalks. Yeah, it's torture out there.
So how long did you live in California?
3 months.
3 months.
And we went to Disneyland because they had horse racing there, and the guys would all watch the horse races, and the women would walk around the grounds there. And I happened to, of course, I was pushing Tommy in the stroller, and they didn't want to walk with me, so they'd walk in front of me. And this one, what do you call it? Like the fair, all the concession stands, not, the game things. Well, they had like a big tent with those game things in it. And I got a photographic memory. And it's a good thing I did, because all of a sudden I became snow blindness. Everything was pure white. It's called snow blindness. Probably from the sun. And maybe it had to do with being pregnant too and pushing the stroller and stuff. I don't know. But anyway, I couldn't see, and it was in the middle of this place. And so I called, tried calling Judy and Snooky, but they just ignored me and went on. I knew I had to just keep going, since I couldn't see. I hope nobody was in front of me, to where the entrance of this place was with all these games. And then I had to go to the left, and about, maybe 2 blocks down was a bench. I remembered a bench there when we had gone to the game section. And so I made it. Since I got photographic memory, I made it all the way to that bench, and I just sat there until the guys got done watching races, and I had to sit there until they found me. Never did see them women again until it was time to go home. They didn't care. And then actually, after I got home, and I guess maybe got in the air-conditioned house and that for a while, it went away.
All right, this is a long segment, so we're going to take a quick break and see what our sponsors have to say while we regroup.